As it dey hot, it don't happen. No, the obedient family. This video now for us. Yeah, I'm gonna watch them. And please don't forget to share this video. Obedient family, please be obedient. Share this video. May we educate people about Peter Obi.
For me, it's about, of course, people have to handle that situation. People have to stop that fire from escalating. Because if you don't stop it from a particular building, it might go on to other areas and everything. It is difficult, but it's not impossible. There's so many countries that have gone through what we've gone through now, that have passed through it, and we're able to come out of it in a careful, organized approach. And that is what is to take the issues one after the other and say, how do we deal with it? We have insecurity. We have issue of rising debt, like you said. Not even rising debt, we have a near collapse situation in terms of economy and everything. But it has to be handled.
How do you, and investors won't come into a country where you have high security incidents. How do we, what comes first, the economy or the security, and how do we handle this?
It's a combination of both. You can't tackle one and leave the other. Because in tackling both simultaneously, especially the economy, you reduce the criminality. Don't forget that the criminality worsened because of the collapse of the economy. So you have 100 million people living in poverty. You have high unemployment, the highest, I would say, in the world. It might not be highest in percentage, but highest in number. So the more you pull people out of poverty, the more you reduce the criminality. So as you're doing this, at the same time, you are engaging, strengthening your security architecture to be able to tackle the criminal aspect of it.
But there's also the transnational security threat. If you look at the West Africa sub-region, Burkina Faso is now the center of terrorism in the Sahel. Nigeria is part of the multinational joint task force. There's also the G5 Sahel. Is it time that we seek outside help? And what sort of help would we need when it comes to dealing with our security issues?
For me, yes. First is to deal with it, strengthen the internal, reorganize and strengthen the internal security architecture. Strengthen and deal with the economy to have a robust economy. Like I said, if you have this, then of course you're going to work and seek support wherever you can get to deal with it. But you have to start with the internal position, making sure it is robust enough to be able to engage even the outside help you're going to bring in.
So I want to follow up on that, because I hear strengthen the internal architecture, but the how is the conversation now. Many Nigerians are tired of hearing politicians say, I will. Now it's a conversation of how will you? So the issue of state police comes up. The issue of funding comes up as well.
What I always say people is that when it comes to issue of listening to politicians, it comes to issue of trust. There's people contesting, who among these do we trust in what he's saying? Nobody. I can give you to the minutest detail what I'm going to do with the issue of security. I've said it will be decisive and it will be immediate.
How?
That is where I will not tell you. If you're talking about issue of state police or issue of this, for me, there's no reason why we shouldn't even have local government police. There's nothing wrong in state police. Because for me, every state should be able to protect itself. Period. There's nothing wrong in that. It will not stop us from strengthening the national police. It will not. Whatever we can do to secure the country, I'll do it.
Whatever you can do to secure the country,
I'll do it. it is not negotiable because it is imperative in your trying to attract investment. There's critical areas to attract investment. There's intangible assets of growing your GDP, security, rule of law. All these have to be in place. It's not negotiable at all. Whatever it takes to ensure that these two is there, that's it. The problem you have then, the government have been operating in a situation where nobody can trust. There's no trust between the Nigerian populace and the government. So if you build trust and people can see that things you're doing is transparent, you can be able to negotiate whether we can pay this level of subsidy and be able to use these assets which we're not going to pay to do this, to invest in this, to invest in this. But we cannot have a situation where in a year, subsidy takes more than what we put in the three most critical areas of development. If you talk about development today, you talk about Human Development Index. These three are life expectancy, which is health, education, and per capita, which is pulling people out of poverty. If you put what the Nigerian budget for these three items, so subsidy is more. So what are you doing? How can you be throwing your people into poverty and be paying subsidy?
So I like the point. I like the fact that you brought up this issue of stealing and inducement. So let's talk about corruption. Do you think Nigeria is winning the fight against corruption? There are a number of loopholes, sinks, drains.
There's no loophole. Fighting corruption is easy. I said repeatedly in all my interviews. If you, the principal person, is not stealing, your wife and children are not stealing, those around you are not stealing, you reduce it by 70%.
But your wife and children are not in positions of authority.
No, I'm just telling you, don't leave anything. They will be, somehow. I know how these things work. If they are not stealing, you reduce it by 70%. I have to add my own as governor. Before commissioner will add his own. Before PASEC will add his own. And it goes on and on and on. Before it comes back for you to sign. And I've said it repeatedly. Go to Anambra State, where I was governor for 80 years, and show me one contractor, one supplier, who will say he sat down with Peter Obi as governor to discuss what he will give Peter Obi, or how to increase the price to accommodate Peter Obi. Go to Anambra State and show me where their money is missing, and they can trace it. Like they normally say, oh, this money entered this person's account. I was governor for 8 years.
Now, there was a time where Nigeria was part of the top 20, 25 economies in the world, and Africa was the center of our foreign policy in the post-independence era. If you emerge president of Nigeria, what would be your focus? What would be your foreign policy thrust?
Well, it remains what you said before. Africa will be our focus. But first, we have to come home, strengthen our policies, our socio-economic engagement to make, create a robust economy to be able, because unless you have an internal, a domestic, robust, strong economy, you can have a strong foreign policy. You need that to be able to be. Africa remains our focus. We want to show our leadership in Africa, but we want to be able to show that by example. So when we have a robust, functional economy, we want to secure the country. So we regard as security architecture, let our country be secured, working with our other neighboring countries to make sure there's security within the say, West Africa region, Sub-Saharan Africa, all these things, and then engage and ensure that in Africa, we will engage based on cost trade, now that we have after NEPAD, peer review mechanism, all these things. But Africa remains our focus.
I'm happy you mentioned this, because if you look at Africa's dealings with the West and other areas, there's a Japan-Africa summit, there's a Russia-Africa summit, there's a China-Africa summit, France, Turkey, name it. But they hardly come to Africa to negotiate.
Because the leader, Nigeria, has not done his job very well.
You believe Nigeria should be the leader of Africa?
Yes. But for you to be a big brother, for you to be a big brother, you need to put your house in order. Our house is not in order. You don't just say, I'm a big brother, when you're even probably being fed by your junior brothers and sisters. The big brother has to show a big brother by coming out and being healthy and doing the right things, taking the right decisions, and then constructively engage the other people.
Let's talk about Nigeria's civil service. If you ask maybe the average Nigerian and they describe it bloated, ineffective, out of date, not technologically advanced, and a lot of candidates tend to steer away from the issue of the civil service. How would you address the issues there?
I tend to disagree. You can turn them around.
How?
It's very easy. People tell me, let me give you an example. Why I always say, people say, I always go back to Anambra State. When we came in and we say, listen, education, we were number 26 and 27 thereabouts in Wayeka Neko. And I said, we're going to change it. We want to be among the best 5. Everybody said to me, oh, you cannot achieve it. Not with this civil service, not with these teachers, not with this, not with that. I said, okay. We became number 1 using the same teachers, using the same civil service. The leader must show leadership. The leader must live with example. When everybody sees the direction, when you have a clear destination, you're driving everybody through, and you can bring people to have faith. They trust you, so they have faith that you're taking in that direction, and they see you consistent on moving in that direction. They'll follow you.
Can that format be applied on the federal level?
Everywhere.
You have appointments that you have to make across board.
Everywhere it can be applied.
Putting into consideration federal character,
exactly, the politics of it.
Religious sentiments.
When I moved from being a private businessman, being chairman of corporations like banks, into politics, everyone said, oh, politics is different. There was nothing different in it. Every section of Nigeria wants to have uninterrupted electricity. Don't they? Every part of Nigeria wants to see good roads. Every part of Nigeria wants food to come down. Is there anywhere you buy bread cheaper? So why won't you? If you do the right things, everybody will follow you. It's simple.
How do we address the ASUU issue?
Let me tell you. It's not an ASUU issue. You talk about education issue. Nigeria has 15 million adult school children. So you're going to deal with issue of education holistically, starting from the foundation. The most important education is the basic education. The most important is universal basic education, which is primary and secondary, which must be made compulsory and funded aggressively. Beyond that is your tertiary institution, which you need a combination of sitting down with ASUU and finding what is happening in other countries of the world. Look at what's a combination of what is happening all over the world to fund them appropriately. The agreement they are quarreling with is not too much for government to pay, consider the amount of money.
So it's a problem of education throwing money at it, because you said funding aggressively for the primary level.
You know, I told you I took education from 26 to number 1. I know what it is. When I mean funding aggressively, I mean funding aggressively. Aggressively is not just funding. You need to have the right management. You need to have the right people. Government is involving themselves into too much in what they should not involve themselves. So when you do that, when you do what I said at the primary level, on the tertiary level, where we even have a major crisis, globally, the global intake of tertiary institution, global intake, is at 8%. In the Western world, it's over 50%. In Nigeria, it's 9%. So you're not even of the quarter of the global average. So you need to be more aggressive.